Every October, the world holds its breath. From a grand hall in Oslo, a single name is announced. A name that will, for the next year, define our collective aspiration for peace. This is the legacy of the Nobel Peace Prize, an honor bestowed upon giants of history, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Nelson Mandela, individuals who reshaped our moral landscape. But in 2025, the announcement sent a ripple of surprise through the international community. The name that echoed from the podium wasn't a powerful head of state who had just signed a landmark treaty, or a globally recognized celebrity using their platform for a popular cause. The speculation had centered on familiar figures, the usual titans of geopolitics. Instead, the prize was awarded to María Corina Machado. For many outside of Latin America, the name was unfamiliar. This wasn't a stateswoman with a seat at the UN, but a citizen activist from Venezuela. A political engineer by training, she had become a tireless advocate for democracy, even as the state tried to silence her. She was officially banned from holding public office, a tactic designed to neutralize her influence. Her rallies were disrupted, her character assailed in state-run media. And yet, it was this very struggle, this unwavering commitment to non-violent democratic principles in the face of immense pressure, that the Nobel Committee chose to honor. While many international headlines fixated on the more sensational angle, who win, focusing on figures like Donald Trump and the horse race of nominations, they missed the profound statement being made. The real story wasn't about a celebrity politician being snubbed. It was about the very definition of peace being radically reimagined. For decades, we've understood peace primarily as the absence of war. But what if that's not enough? What if true, sustainable peace requires something more fundamental? The Nobel Committee's choice was a quiet revolution. They didn't just reject one man, they elevated a new ideal. They declared that peace is not merely the silence of guns, but the sound of citizens freely choosing their leaders, of justice being served, of human rights being upheld. Today, we'll explore why the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize marks a turning point, when democracy became the new condition for peace. Every year, the Nobel Peace Prize forces us to ask a simple but powerful question. What does peace mean, right now, in our world? The answer is never static. It evolves with us, reflecting the challenges of our time. It forces a global conversation, compelling us to look beyond headlines and reconsider the very foundations of a stable and just society. A century ago, in the shadow of the Great War, the answer seemed clear. Peace meant disarmament. Fewer weapons, fewer wars. Alfred Nobel's original vision focused on reducing standing armies and fostering fraternity between nations. The prize honored statesmen who negotiated treaties and architects of international law. The enemy was tangible. The tank, the trench, the declaration of war. Peace was the silence after the guns fell quiet. But today, the nature of conflict has transformed. The world's most violent struggles are often not between nations, but within them. The front lines are no longer just remote battlefields. They run through city squares, courtrooms, and newsrooms. The adversaries are not always foreign armies, but creeping authoritarianism, the erosion of civil liberties, and the systemic dismantling of democratic institutions. In this new landscape, the absence of war is not enough. A quiet populace living under oppression is not at peace. It is silenced. And so, the definition of peace has expanded. Today, it means something more complex, more fundamental, the survival of democracy itself. The 2025 Nobel Committee made that clear with a choice that was both an honor and a declaration. They awarded the prize to María Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader who stood against authoritarian rule, not with armies, but with unbreakable civic courage. This courage was forged over years of relentless political persecution. María Corina Machado has been systematically targeted, arrested on fabricated charges, silenced by state-controlled media, and arbitrarily barred from public life, her political rights stripped away in an attempt to render her powerless. Yet, where others might have answered oppression with violence or simply surrendered to despair, she chose a more difficult, more powerful path. Instead of choosing violence, She chose to organize. She went to the grassroots, building coalitions one conversation at a time. She inspired nationwide protests, not with weapons, but with the unassailable logic of human. In 2024 and 2025, her movement, built on the foundational principle of nonviolent resistance, began to systematically challenge the Maduro regime's control over Venezuela. This wasn't a revolution of weapons, but one of will. It was waged not in barracks but in community meetings, not through state broadcasts, but through encrypted messages shared from phone to phone. Where the government sought to isolate its citizens, the movement built networks of solidarity, challenging the regime not with force, but with something it could not control: the unified spirit of the people. It was a campaign not to overthrow a government, but to reclaim a nation's dignity. For millions, dignity had become a distant memory. The ability to find medicine, to speak freely, and to believe your vote could shape your country's future. The movement sought to restore this fundamental human contract, a promise citizens made to one another, to rebuild the social fabric torn apart by years of crisis and repression. And that's what the Nobel Committee rewarded. In a landmark decision, they looked beyond traditional diplomacy to recognize a more profound truth: that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of freedom. The 2025 prize acknowledged that the most vital peace-building of our era is happening in the civic sphere, led by ordinary people. The committee saw in Venezuela's struggle a powerful model for resolving the internal fractures that threaten so many nations. For decades, the world assumed peace came from treaties and leaders. The global security architecture was designed to manage conflicts between states. But the wars of our time no longer begin between countries. They begin within them. They are slow-burning crises fueled by injustice and the erosion of democratic norms. These are not conflicts fought over territory, but over the very soul of a nation, representing a fundamental breakdown of trust between the governed and those who govern. The path to this internal collapse is tragically familiar. It begins when governments silence their citizens, criminalizing dissent and shuttering independent media. It accelerates when elections lose meaning, becoming performative exercises rather than genuine expressions of the public will. And it culminates when truth becomes dangerous, when facts are subverted by propaganda. So yes, Donald Trump didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize, but perhaps that's not the story that matters. The real story is that in 2025, the Nobel Committee quietly told the world, peace without democracy is an illusion. Democracy without peace is unsustainable. And sometimes, the bravest act of peace is simply to keep speaking when silence is safer. Because true peace isn't built on fear, it's built on freedom. And that, more than any headline, is what the world chose to celebrate this year.